One, we're talking about how leadership should adapt to contingency theory, right? Like this is a specific topic. I think there's more aware nowadays, right? For as example, contingency theory is pretty much how leaders adapt throughout their environment, and with this globalized environment we have at the moment, like it changes every day. That has changed how it works a couple of decades ago. That it should happen some changes between 6 months or more. At the moment, we can have something today, and in 2 days from there, you're going to have a different context for you and different context for your people, right? So as a matter of fact, people like leaders based on contingency theory should have an idea to adapt to depending on the situational variable, right? So if the case is we're having economic impact or we're having a different topic, we should have something to take into consideration for our decisions and also how we should live old people, right? So this is how pretty much how you can measure if a leader has that flexibility at the moment, right? Because in time of crises or innovation types, we usually have this kind of change of management ideals for people, and that's pretty much what is contingency theory in modern leadership. Is, as I said, you should have a situational alignment, like depends on which is the approach for an environmental further structure of, or you even though you have cultural factors, like if you are trying to address someone from Brazil and you are located in Europe, like the time zones can vary and it can affect people. Like, oh man, you're having a meeting for me at the end of the day, for me, and you're adequating your the time zones for you. So that kind of things you should have as a situational a context like this flexibility or situational awareness of how what's going on in this specific place, and this strategic fit, like uh, that for example you something that works in here not usually will work in another place because of other, and that's why you need the contextual adaptation first, and then the outcome optimization when this aligns with the context, this aligns with the strategic, and this aligns for example for the structures of these places, and so we can have like changes of different outcomes or resilience in people that would change this, right? And afterwards understanding like some papers and studies and how this can work, and you can relate it to a real world application. I took like Wilson instead that it's an analysis after COVID-19 that emphasizes leadership virtues like how the empathy within our coworkers, how decisive we are, and the transparency between people, like what I'm going to say, you want me to be transparent, or you want me to lie to you to so you can react different, and that's what most people think that, or leaders think that you should adapt your answer towards what your employee is expecting, right? But at that specific thing, you need to have emotional intelligence to know what's going on with that person. Like if he will like you to lie, or if he will like you, or she will like you to be more transparent in making that thing through that she's having or he's having at the mind at that specific moment. And this is a good example for Airbnb, and I guess pretty much many companies, not just tech, like every other company during the pandemic, like they're having layoffs, they were shifting business strategies, they were shifting structures, they were making a lot of changes so we can adapt to this new reality at that specific moment in time. So in this case, like the Airbnb CEO, Brian Chesky, like he was talking about the challenges to people, like their partners and the people like the board and stakeholders always thinking, man, we have some challenges regarding this specific things, these topics. Uh, about the layout, like he was calling people and telling them like we are going to be you're not going to be longer part of the company, that kind of stuff, but like showing like that specific emotion, that adaptation of the business strategy, what they were going to do to maintain the people they were having, they are going to stay at the company, and how this strategy should shift the company on the long term, right? Because at the moment we can of strategies or actions we can make so we can like solve in this specific moment, but afterwards it wouldn't work or couldn't be sustainable on time, right? So that's a kind of another thing should or could happen in this specific topic, right? Afterwards is how this, like from COVID and on, how all innovation and digital transformation began to happen in every other company because we were in a like in a silo that we were saying, okay, we don't know, we don't need this, we want that, and like we can make customers be about this. But before all that happening, and then before because many companies needed to make this shift pretty quick, and without knowing what's going to be after this, and that's why at this all companies should have this contingency fit during digital transformation that have been through also, and Zoom exemplified this as a home. Like they were leveraging, for example, the structure they already have, all the infrastructure, technological infrastructure, and how they can align the structure they already have with the new demands of the market, and how this all can happen within what they already got. And many times isn't that easy, right? That is specific cases, in a success case that people were kind of ready for that shift of management or this that shift of leadership at the moment, right? So for example, like I addressing here, like access organizational readiness, like you need to know if the organization and your people are ready for that change. Then align the resources because it's not just the people, it's the technology or any other thing that you need to be ready for that change. And then you need to adapt that leadership style, right? Because in this globalized economy, your leadership in Asia should have some kind of way. The leadership you have in America, it's different. You should have different mindsets for this and different ways to talk to people and your teams so we can thrive because of these needs and how people is reacting to all these needs and changes is because people is not just reacting to what's happening in the environment. It's also reacting to the instability that you're giving them between they're not knowing what's going to be happening afterwards or happening at this specific moment. So we got to this reassess it, right? We need to reassess them with our team and reassess them with the environment, what's going on specifically at that specific time, right? Like we need to talk to people because, for example, I don't, in some countries, like you need to check with people one time a week or one time a month or every 2 weeks, right? And that specific context, it works perfectly. But in like, for example, Latin America, you need to meet because of the changes you can have. You can your people could need like 1 week at checkups and that kind of stuff. So you need to be reassessed depending on that cultural and environment situation, right? And then afterwards is another kind of thing that explains this theory, the contingency theory, is the resistance to change. Like, for instance, you need to identify which of the resistance sources, like if it's a cultural thing, a structural thing, or it's specifically an individual that's having a barrier and influencing everybody else for this to happen, right? And this happens many times. So many times this resistance comes from not knowing what's going on or not knowing what's going to happen with the company or the department or the functions of someone, right? So this creates uncertainty, and this is what happens and what you need to engage with those stakeholders, providing feedback, and they know and if they're important, or if in any case if they are not that important for the company, or you're need going to be say, making changes on the team and stuff, and making like people building rapport and also like making that kind of sense of ownership within the company and the organization, so they can advocate for change and making people kind of change the mindset towards what's going on, and then you can adapt implementation, right? Because this is going to be a cycle in where you can be modifying your approaches based on the resistance you already got before, right? So if that case was an individual, you will know the next time you're going to do a big change in the company, how to address that specific case, if it's an individual, is it a structural thing, a cultural thing, or whatever other thing that can happen with resistance and these patterns, you can assess them and adapt, and then again evolving with it. And this is a good example of the Legos up in the early 2000s that they're having this approach. Like people were not focused on innovation, not changing everything. It was nearby, bankruptcy. So all this change of management, change of mindset, change of culture, overcome all this internal resistance, right? So you need to be addressing what's going on, what's the thing that's bothering the people or individuals, right, as a whole. And afterwards, and there's another example in which in which leadership fails to adapt, and this is a bad case of what to do, right? Like for example, Kodak, all the stakeholders and leadership, uh, they were having internal resistance towards this because the culture was just going with this way, and what people and the stakeholders and leadership were thinking this way, and there was a misalignment with these two things that causes like the with that clear violation of contingency principles, right? You need to adapt to the context into the people to see what's going to work for you, and that's a good thing to say is in the contingency theory, one size doesn't fit all. And this many times can like reduce innovation, reduce engagement, and even reduce behavior in the people. Like all that good things that people are doing at the moment, what it's going to be staying that way or not. And that's why you also have like rigid hierarchies can affect this because since the pandemic, many places and companies shift this kind of way and empower more like leadership in the countries, not be that huge hierarchy is that huge those huge structures that make bureaucracy a thing, right? A specific pain point in the decision making. So this shifts make strategies easier, more dynamic, and that it really depends on the situation of where it's located, right? And after all this, Chong and Wan also proposed like 6 archetypes that most of them emphasizing decentralization and flexible leadership that's aligned with the strategy, right? So, for example, like grocery chains like Walmart and Tesco, they allow their managers autonomy to adjust operation during lockdown, like the time of closure or everything, or the orders for their vendors, so they can enable faster responses to common behavior shifts. Like for example, Walmart works all around with an automated system that they make the orders for the stores, but by enabling the managers, they know what's going on specifically with the demand of that store, so they how can make changes to those orders and improve the customer satisfaction for that. So that's the thing for adaptive leadership, right? Because they shift depending on the situational demands. That decentralized authority gives that manager the empowerment so he can have the best decision for his people and his customers, right? Absolutely, but having the correct boundaries, right? Like you can go through this, not this, right? And definitely in the fluid communication channels, like there are like country managers or region managers that they report to them. So this multi-directional of that like both ways communication also needs to flow between hierarchies. Like boss, I make this order because of and this continual fluid communication will work. Like and there's still infrastructure, and in many cases, like old people or people with a lot of experience, they tend to think they are being obsolete or that they are not needed anymore because of this. But this makes their positions more strategic than operational, and we need to have this kind of leadership above them to change this mindset so this infrastructure or the structure could work, right? And with all this research trends and like future directions for this, like reminding everything else, like all the methodological differences, like meta-analysis, conceptual case study, qualitative case, a theoretical framework, and single case study, like there specifically, uh, it's the main case, and what I have talked about this before, like leadership must align with context to succeed. You don't have context from anything, you are not going to succeed. And like the future directions, this should work. As I said, many things that are shown in the articles are known because of a tech background or middle management roles are not pretty much taken into case, much like more like Walmart, but it's not a middle management. It's more like a lower management position. So we need to explore more non-tech sectors, like see what's going on in things that are not changing that quick. For example, like agriculture, coffee, uh, let's say beer, let's say uh, sodas, that kind of stuff, where they're needing to change this kind of stuff, right? And then what modern leaders should have in in their abilities to succeed. And with this fast pace, with the globalization, uh, a continuous informed leadership is not just relevant; it is essential, right? So many companies and organizations, because it's not just companies, if they aim for flexibility into their structure and leadership, they should have be more resilient and also more agile, right? And with all these implementations of agile methodology within teams, so they can diagnose environments and adapt toward this, and they can have a different and be better position for decision making. So with this all agile methodologies and breaking silos and making everybody involved with the decision making, you can develop this situational diagnostics, right? And anticipate resistance patterns. What I talked before, that you need to be assessing everybody and then you can have an organizational flexibility that everybody understands what's going on and they'll be prepared for these changes that can happen at any time, right? And then we have like the key takeaways towards this, and is pretty much the key to success is in today's dynamic business environment is situational leadership. You should have a different kind of leadership every time. Every time, you shouldn't have the same kind of way that you're going to talk to everybody else and at any other place. And you have to manage and adjust your style based on the context you have, the flexibility. You need to have the companies to be designed to adapt quickly to changes or anything that might happen. And that's why you need to be like pretty very informed of what's going on at the environment, and you need to anticipate change, like for future disruptions and innovation. You can be preparing like people making changes in within the company because of this, because of the environment they're living in. So as we navigate like all the cases with crisis involved, innovation, resistance, it's not just about having the right plan, it's like having the right approach for that specific moment. And that's pretty much the heart of contingency theory, right? So thank you so much.